Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from everywhere in the world here. You are joining this very first session of Fabric Coffee at Microsoft Fabric Cafe. My name is Mirdad Abdullahi, the community lead of Microsoft Fabric Cafe. I'm super excited to start this journey, the live sessions Fabric Coffee program at our cafe. And so let me share my screen and let's see who we are, what we want to do, and uh, what is today's session. So, as I mentioned, we are in Microsoft Fabric Cafe, a community of Microsoft Layer. And today I'm just going to have an introduction to the Microsoft Fabric Cafe and some reporting. We have the guest speaker, Armando Lacerda, and you're very lucky to have him here. After Armando's session, we will have an QA, actually a question and answering for Armando's presentation, and just prepare your questions. You can just write them in the chats and I will bring them up at the end of the session, and Armando can just address them. And at the end of the session, we have riddles and prize for those who are interested in resolving the riddles, and we will have some gifts for them. Just stay tuned, bear with us, and let's see what will be happen in today's session and who are going to be winners. So, of course, everyone knows Microsoft Learn and the Microsoft Learn community. It is a tech community. By joining there and attending, the socials and following the socials of Microsoft Learn community, you can just stay updated with the latest news. You can ask the questions, you can explore the credentials, certifications, apply the skills, and whatever that is there, and with the guidance of experts. We have the learning rooms in Microsoft Learn that you can just join them. Just meet your peers, meet the experts, and having the one-to-one event sessions with experts and asking your questions. Even you can there share your knowledge, whatever that you have learned, and also you can learn together. And there, you can have the support of experts, and you can just connect to the global, network of tech skills, SMEs. And yeah, that's it. And if you want to join any learning room in Microsoft Learn, you can just follow this short link, aka.ms slash learning rooms, and there you can just find your learning room. But here we are at the learning room of Microsoft Fabric Cafe, and which we are concentrating on Microsoft Fabric only. And we are providing the learning and support to Fabric users in all levels, from beginning to the expert, actually. And it is a forum for everyone to learn, share, and grow skills together. And in our cafe, basically learning with fun. And in below, we have the YouTube channel and LinkedIn QR code, and actually the link, and also a short link for how to join the Microsoft Fabric Cafe learning room. So I will just share the links in the chat as well. Uh, we have a code of conduct in our cafe, in our community. Of course, everyone is going to adhere to them, but please adhere to these code of conduct. Be respectful, just embrace the diversities. Let's stay professional, and if there is any issue, you're gonna report us. Thank you very much for that. And in Microsoft Fabric Cafe, as I mentioned, we are concentrating on Microsoft Fabric. We serve Fabric with different flavors of data engineering, data integration, data warehousing, business intelligence, data science, or even real-time intelligence. And just a quick reporting on the activities of our cafe, in less than 2 months. It is incredible. I'm super excited to share these numbers with you. It is our very first, show of our cafe, and we have almost 1,000 people on LinkedIn. We have people in our learning room around 200 and something, 250 almost, and also in YouTube channel. In the YouTube channel, I know all the live sessions will be recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel immediately after the show, and you can just always rewatch them. And if you miss that, just watch it. And thanks for your support; it is really appreciated. Thank you very much for following us. And in August, we have a fantastic calendar here. As the first session, we have Armando, and just stay tuned for the next sessions. And I will share the links and all of the registrations today, and just follow the socials and LinkedIn, and also in the learning room. There we can just stay tuned for these sessions and don't miss them out. And for today, we have Armando Lacerda. I can't wait to keep him in the backstage. Let me bring him up. Armando, welcome to your room, actually. Armando is a Microsoft Learn expert, and I'm super excited to have him here. Let me just, yeah, Armando, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me, Murdad. It's great to be here. And thanks for adding one more valuable resource to the community, right? We have our learning rooms, and now we have our fabric coffee, right? Saturday in the morning.
Nice, nice, nice. Thank you very much for making your time. It is Saturday morning. Armando is also in my time zone. It is 8 a.m. Saturday, and what else better than learning and sharing the knowledge together and with actually with others. And yeah, Armando, if you want to just introduce yourself, just go for it, or everyone knows you, but just let's add
No,
a small
I'm not a movie
introduction.
star. Nobody knows me. Yeah, hello
And
everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Armando Lacerda, and I am a Microsoft MVP on data platform. I've been working with Fabric since it was private preview. So I've been having fun with Fabric for almost 2 years already. And before that, I've been a data guy for like over 20 years. I've been working with mainframes. I've been working with Oracle, and late 90s, I got seduced by the dark side of the force, got into SQL Server, and never looked back, right? So being very specialized on Microsoft Data Platform solutions. And it's great to be here.
awesome, awesome. Thank you very much, Armando, for accepting this invitation. We are super excited as the first speaker for the Fabric Coffee Show. I don't want to actually waste the time of attendees and you, and I will just share your screen, and I will be in the back stage. Stage is yours, and guys, grab your coffee and enjoy the session. See you later.
All right. Fabric Cafe. So let's have coffee.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Again, it's a great pleasure to be here with you. I really enjoy, connecting with the community. We have a community here in California. I'm based here in California. I'm originally from Brazil, and here just next week on Wednesday, we're gonna have an in-person meeting here with the Sacramento SQL Server user group. They're really interested in Fabric, so I'm gonna be there. It's my home user group, if I may, and it's gonna be a great session there. So Fabric, it's one of the words from Microsoft. There is AI, there is Copilot, and there is Fabric, right? These are the main things nowadays happening in the Microsoft ecosystem. And today we're going to be here talking about one of the. And by the way, I didn't know too early this morning when I was talking to Murdat that this is the inaugural one. So lucky me, what an honor! Thank you for having me for the very first session here. And I'll be back to watch the next presenters. I'm sure other people have they have great content to share about Microsoft Fabric. Fabric, it's really like a wide, very wide, very deep collection of data engines offered by Microsoft. And when people step into Fabric, sometimes I have seen with my customers, they get a little dizzy, right? There are so many things to look into this thing here. How do we use this? A lot of customers, they come from Power BI background. Some of them come from Synapse background. And now this whole thing is mixed up together, and there is more things than there wasn't with both of them combined before. So they get a little dizzy. One of the most common questions that I get when we are designing solutions for my customers, it's exactly this. We have this lake house, we have this warehouse or data warehouse, or the full name, Synapse data warehouse inside Fabric. When do I use one? When do I use the other? Should I use them whatsoever? Should I use something else? So people get a little bit dizzy. So most of my presentations, they are based on my interactions with my customers, the answers I give to them. So I clean them up and I make something that is, not customer specific, but maybe of interest of the whole community. So here we go. Let's go for it. When to use the lake house, the warehouse, both, or even should I use them at all? So let's take a look and let's see what they are all about. Make sure here I'm on the slide deck and the clicker works. There we go. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to start with some architecture overview to make sure that we are all on the same page. And then I'm going to take a look on the Spark engine, which is the Lakehouse side of things. Then we're going to take a look on the SQL engines and a particular technique that most people, when they come into data engineering, they are not so familiar with this technique. Most of my customers, when they're first being on board into data engineering, they're not very familiar with this technique because of the file system that it's under these engines. So we're going to take a look on the CTAS as we move along. All right, so this is a slide I put up together of actually over a year ago when Fabric was still in public preview, and I was presenting this session with a friend of, presenting sessions with a friend of mine from Portugal, Thiago Balabucci, and represent this thing in Portuguese. And we put this thing together here because there's another design that I'm going to show you later. But this one here is like, it kind of resembles what you see when you first land into Fabric. And I'm going to go to the browser. I have a lot of demos to go with you. So when you first land into Fabric, you get pretty much this collection of icons there, or logos. And what do you see here? For the most part, what Microsoft really words this, the way they put this out is these are experiences that you have inside Fabric. So if you want to jump into Fabric and work with Fabric, you may be a data engineer. So you probably would go here into Fabric and select to see data engineering related tasks or resources. Fabric is always available for you there, but you can tailor your user interface to what is more lined up with the tasks you are going to work on. So if you're a data engineer, you may select this particular experience, right? Or if you're going to do dimensional modeling and you want to work with a SQL kind of experience, Microsoft SQL Server kind of experience, you may want to go into data warehousing. If you want to do, if you want to react to streaming data, and when the streaming data tells you something in particular, you want to react to that streaming data that's coming in, you may want to go into data activator and the other elements that are around data activator, and so far, so on. So here's the point. All of these elements in there are experiences or ways you have to work with Fabric, right? Depending on what you want to do. What this session wants to call your attention to and kind of refocus this thing is each one of these options that we have there in Fabric, the personas you can assume, or the experience you may choose, each one of them, they actually refer to a particular data engine. And here's the whole thing about Fabric. Fabric is not one data engine. Fabric is a collection of data engines that can share data in between them, and that's the beauty of Fabric, right? Based on the one lake is the first one here. Where's my mouse? Here is the first one here, right? The one lake. So all the engines, they store the data in one lake, and the one lake in itself is an engine, not a, data crunch engine, but it's a file system engine. And all the other engines, they communicate through one lake. They have their own data in one lake, their metadata in one lake, and they also share their data with the other engines through one lake. And this is a big, a very big concept to have in mind when you are working with Fabric, because all of these options, they are their own specific engine. And another way to represent this is like this, right? You have the experiences up top, as you can see over here, right? The experiences are over here up top. But what they really represent are engines that are writing data to one lake. And some of these data engines, they may write data to one lake. Perhaps that's the only option that they have. But sometimes they have an option to keep the data for themselves and not share with other engines. And this is a kind of a side note. I'm not going to dive into this, but just for you to be aware of and make your notes and do your research later. For instance, if you go into Power BI, the Power BI experience in Fabric is to create reports. Like Power BI is to create reports, right? Power BI reports and dashboards and all of that. And if you work with Power BI, if you're familiar with Power BI and you have been working with Power BI before, you know that in Power BI you can do import. And when you do import, the data belongs to Power BI, right? You copy the data into Power BI. So if you are in Fabric and you create a data set, or now it's called a semantic model, and you import that data into the semantic model into Power BI, that data will not be shared by default with any other engine, will belong just to Power BI. But if you want to, you can tell Power BI that you want to work with data that are the data that's in one lake and was created by other data engines. And now you have not just direct query and import mode, but now you have direct lake, which is a particular option inside of the Power BI data engine to work with the data that is in one lake. And there is more news. There's more features coming to this later. There will be news later about even more integration on that side on Power BI. My point here is this: Power BI, besides being an interface to create reports, is also a data engine that may leverage data that was placed in one lake by other engines. And if what I'm doing is just Power BI, that could be the case that I'm not going to use either the Lakehouse or the warehouse. I could just do Power BI by itself, do imports, and off we go, right? Depending on what you're doing in the use case, that is an option that's supported in Fabric, and you have all other options in Fabric if you need them later. So it is this flexibility that's beautiful inside Fabric. I really like the way Microsoft laid this down. Just a word in here. I have friends over. It's a Saturday morning, and they brought their kids. They didn't know I have this meeting here. So if you hear a kid screaming in the background, don't worry. It's just they playing in the living room, in the other room here. I'm in my office. The living room is right there. All right. But for us in this session, we want to focus on the Lakehouse and the warehouse. So let's trim this over here. Take these other engines away, and let's focus on these two guys here. The project, my use case with my customer, the sample customer I had in mind, they're really doing the data engineering. They're really bringing a lot of data from their sources. Here, going to be using that New York tax data sets that's available there from the New York City. And so that's about, I think I have like 400 gigabytes of data there for the demo. So no big deal, not that big. But in our case here, we want to focus on these two engines because, again, I'm working with some volume, and Power BI by itself would not be able to do that volume, and I want to process the whole thing inside Fabric. So here in this slide here, what I have here is two experiences, right? The Synapse Data Engineering and Synapse Data Warehousing. But we know this is the experience, this is the user interface. What is behind this experience is, if I'm doing Synapse Data Engineering, what I have in there is this Fabric resource called the Lakehouse. So the Lakehouse is your option to implement data engineering in the way data engineering was originally conceived, right? From big data and then into Spark, right? But made by Databricks, and doing code, doing Scala, doing PySpark, perhaps even Spark SQL, and you're doing data engineering. So for that particular kind of engine and processing elements, we do the Lakehouse. On the other end, so the Lakehouse is a Spark engine. And on the other hand, I may have my data engineers, they came from Microsoft background. They were using SQL Server before. They may have done SQL Server integration service, and they're good with, I'm sorry, they're good with T-SQL. And what they want to do, it's leveraging their T-SQL backgrounds and skill sets to do data engineering, right? To do data transformations. So in the Synapse Data Warehouse, what we have there is the option, the resource inside the Fabric called the warehouse. And when we go into the interface, and again, I'll be jumping to into the demos in a few. When we go into the interface, we have these options right there. When you go to the interface and you do like, I want to create a new thing in my workspace. And what do I want to create? And here we are, right? We have the option here for the warehouse down here, right? Is my mouse there? No, sorry. Here. Come on. Show it. There we go. The warehouse right here, or the Lakehouse right over here, right? The Lakehouse right over here. So we have these two options in there, besides the other things that float around what a data engineer would do. And these two engines are able to write data to one lake. And once again, let me emphasize that when they write data to one lake, the one lake is your file repository. If you were on premise, it would be like a NAS somewhere, and you are sharing a folder in that NAS, and these engines would be writing their files on that shared folder there, and they would create their own file structure. The way Microsoft likes to call this is like, let's go everybody to the cloud. So let's not talk file shared folder or NAS or anything on premise. Let's talk the cloud. So the one lake, it's your one drive. And it's a great analogy. I myself, I have a little bit of trouble with that analogy, because when you say one drive, people may be misled to, I have a Word document, I have a PowerPoint document, I'm going to save that in one lake. Even though you could, you should not, right? Because that thing, the one lake, it's for Fabric files that will be serving data to Fabric. But there is a way we're going to show you here. You can actually drop your files in there. But it's kind of the idea of a OneDrive, but for data engineering, right? For data processing, for data analytics. And that's an important thing, right? For now, Fabric, it's for data analytics only. If you're doing transactional system, Fabric is not your place yet. Maybe later, we don't know. But maybe for now, it's just data analytics. So I can go in there, and what I find is not the warehouse or system engineering. What I find is the Lakehouse and the warehouse. And when I get into those options, after I create them, what we see in Fabric is this, right? I have these two options. I see these two elements there in my workspace. And again, just hold your breath there, be right there in the live demo to show this. But what I want to point out in here is that you see, I have the warehousing here. It's right here in this line, the first one here, and I have the Lakehouse down here. But when I get into the Lakehouse, you can notice a difference right here. What's the difference? Now, when I have the warehouse, if you look, I hope you can see my mouse. When I look into the Lakehouse, connected to the Lakehouse, I have this thing called the semantic model. It's just one thing connected to the warehouse, which is the semantic model. But when I go into, and don't worry about this line here, it was just there. Don't worry about this line here. But when I go into the lake house, what I see in the lake house is the same semantic model I had over there, but there is this SQL analytics endpoint. What is this? No, I have two elements under the lake house and just one element under the warehouse. So what is this thinking here? If when we do the warehouse, we have a SQL Server engine serving the data and transforming the data. I can actually do data transformations, right? Do inserts, update, and deletes. I can query a table and do data transformations or writing to another table. I can actually do data transformation, right? Data engineering using SQL Server because the warehouse, this option here, right? The Fabric warehouse, the data engine is a SQL Server engine. It's not the regular SQL Server like SQL Server 2022. It's not the regular SQL Server or Azure SQL DB or SQL MI. It's the core engine with some very specific implementations to work with big volumes of data and work with performance. If you are familiar with Azure Synapse Analytics, the predecessor of Fabric, right? Fabric, some people call Fabric Synapse version 2, or the evolution of Synapse. But if you're familiar with Synapse Analytics, your warehouse would be something similar to the dedicated SQL pool, but way better than a dedicated SQL pool. One of the biggest advantages in this one here is that the data is not siloed inside the engine, right? The data is in one lake, shareable with all other engines there are there in Fabric. So that's a big plus right out of the bat. So again, the data engine in the warehouse is SQL Server, while the data engine in the Lakehouse is Spark, right? It's the Apache Spark. It's a particular implementation. Microsoft got the source code from the repository, made it theirs, right? Integrated with the infrastructure, and it has its specific elements, even its own libraries for Microsoft inside Spark, and then we have it there. Now, the thing when you work with the Spark is the only way you have to query data from Spark, from the original project, is by creating a notebook and do your Spark queries over there. Now, you can even do your Spark queries in Spark SQL, but there is this particular way to connect with Spark that you have to collect data. Now, for Microsoft customers, pretty much all customers, what they want to do is to consume data from any data source like they were a SQL server. So even though I want to do data engineering in the Lakehouse using the Spark resources, when I am to serve that data to customer applications, right, end user applications like Tableau or Power BI outside Fabric, for instance, or Excel, any other tool there, usually what they want to do is to connect to a SQL Server. So what they have done in Microsoft Fabric, is they brought in and connected to the Lakehouse a SQL engine that's pretty much designed for read only. The purpose of that SQL analytics endpoint is to expose what is being written in one lake by the Spark engine in the Lakehouse, as it was a SQL server, a SQL server. And the idea here is not to do data engineering through the analytics endpoint, but just be able to query data using regular T-SQL queries from the Lakehouse. So bottom line here up to this point is I'm talking about three engines, right, inside these two options of the Lakehouse and the warehouse. In the warehouse, I have the SQL engine that's able to do data engineering. And on the Lakehouse side, I have the Apache Spark engine where I do my data engineering and I can collect data and then I can do my selects in there and everything else. But if I want to connect a client application to the Lakehouse, I will use a different SQL engine, not the same warehouse engine, different one. In here, it's called the SQL Analytics Endpoint. And what it does, it exposes what is in the Lakehouse as it was a SQL Server. Again, if you're familiar with Synapse Analytics, this is what used to be the serverless SQL pool inside Synapse Analytics, right? It has a similar, it's actually the same engine and a similar behavior in here. To wrap this up and move to the next elements of this next topics of this presentation, I really need you to grasp the concept that this what's my mouse is here. This over here, right up top, these are compute, meaning they process instructions and the read and write data someplace. And this is the place where they read and write data. And in Microsoft Fabric, for the most part, when these engines they write data in Delta format. So it really doesn't matter which language, which compute engine you use. You are not saving data or writing data into isolated environment. It's actually a shared environment. It's one lake. And when you write the data there, you can read that data from any other engine inside Fabric, regardless of the language they speak. They can go and collect that data from one lake because the data it's in that standard format adopted by Fabric called the Delta table. And when we have a lot of Delta tables, we have a Delta lake. So it really doesn't matter which engine you do. You can use either one of them. Some people have this concept like if I'm writing to the Lakehouse, there is a particular storage for the Lakehouse. And when I write to the warehouse, there's a particular storage for the warehouse. And that is not the case. The files are organized into folders. We will see that. The files are organized into folders, but the folders are all in one place. It's one storage. It's the one lake. So what we have is not an option of storage. This is the point. What we have is not an option of storage. What we have is an option of which compute engine will be writing to the storage. And depending on the compute engine, I will have my option for programming, to do my data engineering. And we will also have a particular behavior when they write these things there, and even particular features. For instance, if I go into the warehouse, I see the Lakehouse like it was a SQL Server, right? This is a screenshot there. So, I have the schema, DDO, I have a table there. I can create views, functions. I cannot create everything that would be in a regular SQL Server because, again, this is specialized for data engineering. But I have an experience like I'm working with SQL Server. On the other hand, when I go into the Lakehouse, I see way less things, right? I see what the Spark engine sees, which is I have a place to work with tables, Spark tables, not the SQL tables, there are Spark tables. And I also have an option to work with files. And here is one major difference and a decision criteria for you. If you need to work with unstructured data, which is files in this case, right? I have a video file that I need to apply some AI on that video file or audio file to extract what is in there, the people that show up in the video, the conversations that were there in the video, if it's the audio file, just a transcript of the audio file, and all of that. So if I need to bring that unstructured data and do this AI analysis on top of it, the warehouse cannot do it. Because remember, the warehouse is a SQL Server engine, and the SQL Server engine likes tables, likes relationships, and do the transformations. And this, it's not really that specialized in AI, to do this unstructured data. So if I'm bringing structured data, like they're already in tables, and I'm pretty much ready for use, and I'm just gonna do my transformations and aggregations, the warehouse is a great option. But if I need to, or either one would be a great option actually. But if I need to do this unstructured processing of the data, or even semi-structured with JSON loads, which usually work better in the Lakehouse, I should use the Lakehouse because I'll be bringing files from whatever sources they are into one lake in their original state, which is unstructured data. So that's why when we do data ingestion inside one lake, usually the landing place is one lake all the time, but through the Lakehouse engine, right? Through the Spark engine, because the Spark engine can work with unstructured data while the warehouse cannot work with unstructured data. I hope that makes sense. If not, ask your questions in the chat. We'll be dealing with the questions in a few minutes. Yeah, so this is what you see there in the Lakehouse. But again, when you go into the Lakehouse, if you want to work with these elements like they were SQL, the files will not be available, but the tables will be exposed like they were SQL. If you change your view, as you can see here on the screenshots, if you change your view, sorry, my mouse is over here, from the Lakehouse, right, which is the selected one in here, to the SQL Analytics endpoint. If you're still working on that, then your same Lakehouse presents itself as it was SQL. So at this point, it really feels like you're doing the warehouse. And again, you see, it feels like you're doing the warehouse because the files are in one lake. So it really doesn't matter which engine you go, right? As long as the engine talks Delta tables, and they all do it inside Fabric. So it shows what's in there. But again, when you do the analytics endpoint, you cannot do data transformations. It's read only, right? The idea here is just to query what has been already processed by the Spark engine. So let's take a look at that. I'm bring here the browser just quick. And here's an example, right? This is when we get into Fabric, you land into the Fabric homepage. If you type fabric.microsoft.com, and then you can choose your experience like we have seen before, right? These are my experiences. They just tailored my user interface, what I see here on my user interface. So if I change from experience to experience, I just change what is in the user interface. Like if I go Power BI, it would show something else. Bottom line is Fabric, the entirety of Fabric, everything that is in Fabric is always available to you, regardless of your chosen experience, right? Or persona. If you want to create anything, you can come here and to create, and you see the full list of what you can create inside Fabric. If you click here on See All, and then you have everything in there. Perfect. Now let me jump here to the New York data set that I have created here for us for this session. Where is it? Here, this one here. So here I have those warehouse that I showed you before and the lake house that I showed you before. These ones are kind of empty, but I have the original one in here with all the files. So you see, I have a warehouse, I have a lake house, and I have another lake house. And if I go here to this lake house, I will see, because this is a lake house, I will see as Spark would see it, right? Which is a collection of files, if there are any files, and a collection of logical tables, Spark tables, if there are any. So I did get, this data set is available from the New York City website, right? The New York City TaxCab website. There is an acronym for them, MTA, I think, but it's available there. But it's a web page with links to the files. For every type of ride and for every month of the year, they have a particular file. So in that case, if I want to bring that data in, when it copying the files over, I cannot use the warehouse, because the warehouse has no option to do this kind of and there is this web page. I need to scrape this web page and bring the files in. So which engine to use, right? The title of this session, right? Should I use a lakehouse or warehouse or both? And so in this case, I would start with the lakehouse, because the lakehouse is the one that allows me to copy files over, right? And I need to scrape a web page and bring files over. So in the Lakehouse, I can create a notebook. I think I have one here for just to show to showcase and make the case for this. I think it's this one here. Actually, it's this one. Bring this guy. So here I can create this workbook here. Yeah, this notebook here is going into the web page where the files are. Is that the right one? Let me see. No, this is not the right one. Let me go back there. Is that the first one there? This one. Scrape the web page. Let's get in there. There we are. So this is the web page that holds the the links for all of the files, and then I get all the links that are in there and look for specific links with the files that I want to bring in, and then I bring in these files, and then when I bring in these files, I'm saving these files to the file system in OneLake for the Lakehouse where I have unstructured data. And I think I'm saving these guys here on screen. Yeah, there they are. And they used to have this as CSVs, but I brought them. Now they have them as Parquet, but month by month, type of write, type of by type of write. So I just bring them in because ingestions like that, right? You just want to bring them in. And here's the point: I cannot do this kind of logic and task inside the warehouse. So Fabric allows me to start with the Lakehouse in this case, right? This is a very unusual case because I'm scraping a web page, but depending on what source you're working with, a REST API someplace, you may end up creating some particular kind of logic and running this logic like this. The other thing I have to do in here is, these files, they are not Delta table files. And, we know that Fabric likes to work with Delta table files. So the next one, the other notebook that I had in here, is the ones that are this particular notebook is going into those files and actually creating Delta tables inside Fabric. So it reads all the files in there and combine the files in one data frame and then write those data frames in the OneLake. So when I go in here, I see all of those files that are in here now combined into tables. And I have two versions in here because I'm doing some tests, but they are combined into tables now into one table with those files, not just in Parquet format, but in Delta table format that's based on Parquet, but with the files combined, and some data engineering going on because there is some files, they have columns with one data type and then the same columns with a different data type the next month. So this kind of data processing, I had to use the Lakehouse. I could not use the warehouse because the SQL language does not support this kind of transformations. I hope that this makes sense, right? So yeah, so I started it like this over here. And yeah, I think this is enough for. And if I want to see these tables like they were SQL engines, right? Not the Spark engine, like I mentioned before, I can go into the Lakehouse. Here's my Lakehouse. I can go there into the Lakehouse, and if I'm doing this interactively through my web browser, like I'm doing now, I can come here and see those tables like they were SQL tables right there. And I can run queries straight from here, or I can just get the SQL endpoint, the address, and then give it to SSMS or Azure Data Studio or Excel or any place else, and they will start querying this data like it was a SQL server, because it's actually a SQL engine supporting things from here and tap into the data that was created by the Lakehouse. Perfect. All right, to the second portion of this session, and this is a very important one. So far, what we have seen here is I have three engines. When I do Lakehouse or Warehouse, I have three engines. Warehouse, the SQL engine that supports data engineering. The Lakehouse, I have the Spark engine that supports data engineering, and connected to it a SQL endpoint to support just query from whatever the process of data engineering created there for me in OneLake. But everything is OneLake. When people come into Fabric and they're coming from transactional systems, if they come from Databricks, they already have this mindset. But in my case, most of my customers, they are working with SQL, they're working with something around SQL. They come with this mindset like, I have a table, so I do transactions on the table, insert, update, delete all the time on that table. And true, right, on that universe. But here in our universe, when you're doing data analytics and data engineering, it doesn't work like that. Even if I'm working with SQL Server. Because when I'm working with SQL Server, the warehouse inside Fabric, the data is stored inside the OneLake in Delta table format that is based on Parquet files. Actually, before I move on here, let me bring here my Windows Explorer. There is this extension for Windows Explorer called the One Lake Explorer, for you to browse One Lake using your Windows Explorer. And as you can see, I have here the Text Original workspace that I was showing you there. And in there, I have my original and the other lake houses and warehouses over there. And if I go here into my original, and if I look here into the tables, I will be able to see those tables you guys have seen over there. I'm zooming here so you can see the same tables we had over there. And when I get into one of these tables, I think I got into rights first there. What I see here is a collection of Parquet files, right? It's a collection of Parquet files organized into Delta tables. So I see the logs over here as I do operations. I did this just one load in this particular case. So you see, these are all Parquet files, and that's why data in One Lake is shared across all the data engines, because they all see the same thing, Delta tables in Parquet format. And the thing with Parquet format, and again, it's kind of subtle, but let me emphasize this. When SQL Server, when you create a table in the warehouse with SQL Server, and it writes to the One Lake, it's creating not an MDF file like SQL Server used to do, but it's actually creating a Parquet file to support that table, right? A collection of Parquet files to support that table, Delta table. And the thing with the Parquet files is this one here. It's you write once and you read many times. Meaning what you write to a Parquet file is read only. You're not going to be able to change that data. And sometimes when you use either SQL or we use Spark, and we do in SQL like insert into that table and we add rows in that table, it feels like you are actually changing the table. You can do updates, you can do deletes. It feels like you're changing the table. And the final result, it feels like and looks like you're changing the table. But what you're actually doing is adding more Parquet files to the collection of files that will combine together, will give you the final snapshot of what the state of the data is. Because everything in Parquet is read-only, it's compressed, it's organized in a way that you cannot change. So if you do an update, you're going to create a new file with that update, and when SQL or the Spark engine reads, they read both files, all the files together, and make the calculation to see what's the final state of that data. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because if data is written once and you're always going to read from it after that, if I need to change that data, I'm going to read and write someplace else. And if I do this, I can use this technique called create table as select or CTAS. I can use this technique here to read data from whatever it is and write to whatever I want it to be, using the engine that will better support the transformation that I want to apply. And the way it goes, oh, sorry, I think I have the choice. So the way it goes like this. Let's say you want to ingest data. In my case, I was ingest data from a web page, right? I was scraping a web page for the links. Again, it can be whatever it is. In Fabric, you have this data pipeline that can, if it's not a web page to scrape, you can use it to collect to a source and write to One Lake. But again, the data pipeline is an engine to connect, but it's not to write in One Lake. When you are writing to One Lake, you have those two options, the Lakehouse or the warehouse. So most of the times we want to use the Lakehouse, like I mentioned, because you may be bringing raw data in a file, in a standard file format, like CSV, Parquet file in the case of the New York City case, or some other ones. So it's more likely than not, you're going to use the Lakehouse to connect to save the data to One Lake. And yeah, sorry, the slide here got out of order. Let me see if I can change it here. Things just quick. Where's my PowerPoint? Here. So we are looking at this slide. Yeah, it's fine. I'll change it later. It threw me off here a little bit because I was expecting, it would be just one row, right? If you can see my mouse over there, the pipeline would be writing to one lake. And after the pipeline lends the data into file format, could be table, right? But let's say in file format, you would be reading that file in one lake again and writing a new file to one lake. So you see, you write once, you may read many times, but if you need to write again, you're gonna write to someplace else. So that C-test technique that I mentioned before, come on, is right here, right? When you are in the notebook and you read, like I did with the files coming from the New York City data sets, I read those files, I reorganize those files that I read from those files, and I write those files again, but someplace else. There were regular parquets when I first wrote them into one lake. Now I'm gonna read and write them in different formats in the same lake. So this technique is everywhere. And because all engines can read the same delta table format, I can go into the warehouse and read the tables that are in the one lake written by the lake house because they are delta tables. So I can bring that data in, as you can see over here. I can bring that data in, read once, read many, and write once back to one lake, but now written by the warehouse. And that's a very common technique because I may have read the data in the original format and I wrote the raw data the way it was in Delta table. Now I'm going to create a dimensional model out of it. So I'm going to reorganize the data into new tables and I'm going to write those new tables into one lake. But now the engine writing those new tables is the warehouse. So that is the C-test right there, collecting the data from the Lakehouse, like I did before, right? The first demo showed that. But now I would be using the warehouse, which is my next demo, which will be there in a few. And as I work in the warehouse, I can apply the same technique there too. There is a table there that needs to, I need to add the surrogate keys or processing the fact table with the dimensional tables and the surrogate keys in there, and the engine that was writing that before was the warehouse. I can go in here and keep doing the writing from into the warehouse, and it will work just fine using the same technique, C-test. And that's a thing that we should keep in mind when working with Fabric and data engineering, right? There's this thing I can do inserts. Like the engine does support small inserts in small files, and we work just fine. But when we are working with volume data, we usually want to apply this technique about the C-test. And I keep going that back and forth the way I want. If after the files are there, if I need to get those dimensional files and give to, let's say, with AI and Copilot, I want to create some embedding to support a chat bot that's going to answer questions on a Copilot somewhere for my company, I can go back into the Lakehouse and read those tables that are in dimensional format there in the warehouse. I can go back into the Lakehouse and do the C-test there to bring the data in and apply, run some embedding code to create, the vector information to supply to Copilot. And off we go, right? You can go back and forth all day long with that if I need to. So let's see how that works. To wrap this up and then open for questions. So so here I am in the cab original. And again, this original will never going to change because it's right once, right? So I cannot really update things in here. I can do updates, but the original files will always going to be there. And I can do time travel to read the other files, the original files if I want to. But if I want to go into the warehouse, where is it? Where I'm looking at. Original. This is my guy. Oh, I'm in the notebook folder. Let me go back in here and let's go into the warehouse. Where's my warehouse? Here. So I got nothing here in my warehouse, right? My warehouse is pretty simple, is pretty empty. So I want to do that C test, right, from the lake house into the warehouse. So what I can come in here and say, you know what? I have other data in other houses inside my workspace. So I can come. It could be other workspaces, by the way, but I want to come in here and get to the tap to the original, and from here now I will be able to see the tables that are in there. It's great. So we're gonna here, this DBO schema here is synthetic. It really doesn't exist as today. I think it's in preview to support schemas in the lake house. So this is just synthetic, but soon enough there will be other schemas there. And let's say what I want to do is create a dimensional table out of out of the yellow rights down here. So let's get this guy here, do a new SQL query, and let's see top 10 just to start with. So here's the entire table, and let's say, I mean, the entire columns, right? All the columns in my table. So let's say what I want to do in here is create a dimensional table based on, let's pick a column here, based on passage count, right? How many people were there inside inside the car, right? Inside the right. So I want to have passage count for this guy here and nothing else, just the passenger count. And I may want to add in here a surrogate key, right? If I want to, of course, I want all of them, but I wanted them distinct. And I could add here a surrogate key, but my time is running out. I'm going to save the surrogate key for another day. So let's say here, I just want to have all values for this particular dimension, right? For the passenger count on my New York taxi. And remember, this thing here is in one lake. And here I'm choosing my words very carefully. This thing here is in one lake, is a delta table in one lake, written by the Spark engine. And I'm reading that data from the SQL engine in the warehouse. So I'm sharing the data. See, no data silos. I can read from anywhere. And my C test technique, right? Very simple approach in here. So create table passenger count dimension, create table as my select, and off we go. So when I do this, the warehouse is going to go into into one lake and read the files that were like it has done before, written or created by the Lakehouse, process my query. And again, this is very simple query, so don't be discouraged by the simplicity of the example, right? I have very complex queries doing applying this exactly same technique to create these dimensions. But of course, I don't want to distract you with complex logic. So the logic is pretty simple. The technique is what's important here. So I'm reading the data there, and I'm writing that data into the warehouse. Actually, I'm writing to one lake using the warehouse engine. So that collection of files will be managed by the warehouse. And when I query my dimensional model, the warehouse knows how to read the files that was created in the best format, best performance possible, and then get the data from there. So now, if I look here into my warehouse, I had just the sample table that's empty over there. But if I run this guy now, after doing this, I should see a new table here doing the C test, right? Applying the C test technique we just discussed. If I do a refresh here, there's my passage account table right there. And whoops, it moved. Let's click this guy again. There we go. That's my passage account table right there. And it's very interesting, right? I have rides with people, 255 people inside a car. I want to know which kind of car was that. The bus or something, whatever. So I have my dimensional tables there, and I can start processing this. So this is the whole idea, right, of working with either engine. So which to the point of this session, which engine should I use, Lakehouse or Warehouse? You should use both depending on the use case. If you are bringing files in, you are more likely using the Lakehouse. If you are doing dimensional modeling, you can use either one. If you are serving with data to consumers, you can do either one, but you might want to use the warehouse because of a better T-SQL support in the warehouse and the things you can do in there. One last call out here before we wrap up is you can use this technique any way you'd like, but be careful about performance, be mindful about performance. And this is the major drawback of switching between data engines, right, that are right into one lake. When you work with small data sets, it really doesn't matter which way you go here, performance will be fine. But when you work with very large data sets, you usually start applying performance techniques. Like if you are in the Lakehouse, you're gonna do partitioning. If you are in the Lakehouse, if you are in the warehouse, you would rely on file organization that the warehouse does, and you don't have any control with, right? It applies a technique called file elimination. So it knows how to read its data in the best way, in the best performance possible. And here's the point: if I go into the Lakehouse and read data from the warehouse, the Lakehouse doesn't know that file elimination technique, and I lose any performance optimization the warehouse applied for very large data sets. If I am in the Lakehouse and apply partitioning, when I read the data from the warehouse is not aware of the partitioning techniques, doesn't support. So the performance of reading from the Lakehouse in very large data sets will be horrible as well, right? So when you work with very large data sets, you have to be aware of these pitfalls in terms of performance and work around those pitfalls, right? There are ways to work around. But the bottom line is you can use either technique, one or the other, and you should be good to go. So I see you in the next session, but I'm staying here right now for the Q&A. Mehrdad, what do we have there?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Armando. That was fantastic. It is always, a controversial topic to what should be chosen actually for storing the data, lake house or warehouse, or even both. And you explained
Yeah,
well everything. And we've got some questions here for you, Armando. I just
I hope
show
it's
them.
not controversial anymore, right? You don't use one or the other, use both.
Okay, cool. The first question comes from Diego. How to avoid data copy from lakehouse to warehouse when using a medallion architecture where the warehouse is the serving layer?
I just demo that, right? You do the way this happens is using an element that I did not mention inside Fabric called shortcut. So depending how you're organizing your data, the data may be on the same workspace or split it into multiple workspaces, and then you're going to create shortcuts the way I did there, either internally or explicitly internally, either way. But you just refer to the table from where the table is and do a select and write where you want the target table should be.
Yeah, as Armando mentioned and just declared several times that the data is going to be written one time and it can be read many times as you need it, and without any copying. And it is the intention of the one lake, of course, to have everything in only one copy of the data. So cool.
Thank
The
you.
next question, actually, it is not a question, Guri. Uh, just joined maybe late to the session. Guri, please, if I pronounce your name correctly, sorry in advance. Uh, the session is already recorded and it will be available immediately in the YouTube channel. You can just watch the part that you missed that, but I'm sure Armando just covered in and summarized everything at the end of the session. That was awesome. Thank you very much. The next question here is from Johnny. I'm a little confused. What is one lake exactly? Because my impression is that it is something like a lake house, but only there is a framework over it to make the lake house more flexible.
All right. So that's a great question. And here's the answer. One lake is not a lake house, and one lake is not a warehouse. The one lake is a file system, right? What you see there in one lake is a file system. Um, if you're coming from Azure, if your background is Azure, when you go into Azure, you can create a thing called the storage account. And you can set up a storage account. They named it back then, made sense, right? They name it like you can create it like uh, a lake house, but actually the naming there is hierarchical file system. The option when you want to do a lake house in storage accounts is by allowing the support for hierarchical file system. This is exactly what the one lake is. It's a hierarchical file system. It's kind of a storage account, but you don't have to create. You just enable Fabric, and that one lake for the entire company, for the entire tenant, is created for you. So again, in summary, one lake is not a lake house. One lake is not a warehouse. One lake is not nothing else. The one lake is a file system, and all data engines in Fabric know how to write files to to that file system, and when they do, they write in their own particular structure, right? Folders and these things, but they write in a file system.
Yeah, as Armando mentioned, One Lake is a file system that is built on top of the Azure Data Lake storage, which is providing you with the flexibility of storing any kind of data. That is awesome. Thank
Yep.
you. And the next question from Guri Prasad: Can we move the current ADF Azure Data Factory joins to Fabric? If yes, how you can explain and how much it will cost? Mm, it is.
So what happens in here? It's a great question. What happens in here is Fabric has a lot of services and features that they resemble what you see out of Fabric. So in Fabric, there is a resource, an item called the Data Factory. So that sounds like the Azure Data Factory we have in Azure in Fabric, right? But it's not. The Data Factory inside Fabric has the same name, but it's not the same thing. So there are things you can do in Azure Data Factory that you cannot do in Microsoft Fabric Data Fabric, Data Factory, right? Fabric Data Factory. So they're not the same. There is no like bridge to copy them over, migrate them over. They have a different design, internal design. So there is not like a one-to-one thing, but there is. I think it's in preview still, not available to everybody. But they are thinking about a way of from Fabric you execute Azure Data Factory outside Fabric, right? But you organize the whole thing inside Fabric. So that's something that's still in the works, I think. But bottom line is Azure Data Factory is not the same as Fabric Data Factory. They have similar names, same family name, but they're distinct things, and you cannot just copy and paste one from the other. You have to re-implement the thing.
Awesome. I hope I answered your question, Guri. Diego, is it possible to use CETA's technique for incremental load from lakehouse to warehouse? Will it work as an upsert?
Yes, you can use the same technique. Like we are moving data from tier to tier, right? From bronze to silver, silver to gold. You have to elect your watermark, right? What's going to define the delta that you want to import. Usually a timestamp of a kind. So you can do that to do an upsert. What you really need to keep in mind is when you do these deltas, these upserts, you want to save time but not move the entire data over again, which makes perfect sense. You should keep using this. But if you when you move, I rather say when you copy data, right, from silver to gold, for instance, for consumption, if you move small, if the delta is a small data volume, you're gonna end up with a lot of files at the end of the day, over the days, and that can impact your performance. So from time to time, you want to go in there and perhaps reorganize your files and read the table and rewrite the table in order to create more internally organized Parquet files for performance. The delta approach, to move just the differential from one tier to the other, is important to have the process running faster. But you have to apply some maintenance after that to keep the amount of files, the collection of files, well organized, so you don't lose performance in granularity of the files.
Perfect. Awesome. And I guess the last question, Z, how much data can Lakehouse and Warehouse store? Is there
How
a
much data
difference
can be
in the amount?
stored?
Store. Yeah.
Yeah, how much data can be stored? Microsoft says it's unlimited. Good luck trying to fill up put down a data center. It's pretty much unlimited. Just to give you a glimpse of what happens behind the scenes here is when you are in Fabric and you create the workspace, the data of that workspace will be stored on a particular data center. So you can create a workspace, put the data in there, and see if you can blow up the store. There's no limit. There is no logical limit for how much data you can put in there. You can try to blow up the storage in that data center. But even if you do, you can create another workspace and assign it to another data center or another region, rather say, and try to fill up the other region too. So I would say what I tell my customers is the limit of data you can have in one lake is your budget, how much you want to spend.
Yeah. Microsoft will be happy if you have if you, the more data, the more money for
Yeah,
Microsoft. But yeah,
very good.
that's a great question. If there is any limitation on storing the data in Lakehouse or warehouse, as much as you want. But of course, we need to keep in mind that the design is very important. How we're gonna design our data structure and data architecture, and to be more, effective, and also, just not impacting, bad impact on the performance. But the
Yeah,
more data there.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you
There's
very much.
I think there is one note in here, Mer, that we should bring up is so there is no limit, right? Like I said, but there is a thing called quota. And when you get into quota, which is like some bad actor could try to run a denial of service either on storage or on compute. How many compute nodes can I have in my warehouse? So let's try to
Yeah.
put like a million compute nodes in there and bring down a data center. So there is this thing about the quota. And if you need very high end storage or compute, the depending kind of the compute, you have to apply and tell Microsoft, look, I'm going to use this, I need this. So it's not that there is a physical limit to this, there is an administrative limit to this, which is the quota. So if you reach a quota, you have to raise a support ticket, say, look, I'm got to the quota here, my business needs to keep going, so please raise my quota. And depending on what we are asking, it may take a process or maybe just immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. And there's one more, just basically comments that are coming through. But
Oh, my friend Tiago from Portugal is teasing me. Where's my gift? I sent him a gift from another common friend. Is there in Portugal already? Right? Um, yeah, I have sent it at the time of build, Tiago. I'll get back to you. I have to catch up with team. Sorry about that, Tiago.
and Gori just asked about the pricing model for Microsoft Fabric. I can just share the link of that one. But of course, we need a special session for only the pricing and how it's gonna work. I just put it in the chat. Not oh, you're on LinkedIn. I will put it in the chat for you the link. You can just have a look at it and see if there is any question for you. But of course, we will have a separate session for the pricing and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, price
Cool.
is something people always asking about, and it became easier in fabric. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera right now, but it became easier in fabric. And in case you're wondering, Mehrdad, this is what Thiago is asking about. I made a Rubik's
Oh,
cube
it's a
using
Rubik one.
fabric icons
Awesome,
because I
awesome. That's a nice one.
I can fix fabric.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, so far we had lots of questions, right? And among these questions, uh, which one was the best one? We want to just give them an exam voucher, which is a 50% exam voucher for the best question. And after that, we will just move on the riddles and ask attendees to just resolve the riddles. But so far, just name one question that was most
Me?
challenging. And yeah, yeah, it is you.
Oh, you put me in the spot, man. Don't do
Yeah,
that. Oh, they're all great questions. Give them one voucher for everybody.
I wish I could.
I don't know what I think the one lake. I mean, the what the one lake really is was a good question. Was a
What
very
is a
good
one
question.
lake? Yeah, and it is Johnny, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm a little confused. And just ask about what is one lake. Is that
The
the
question was
question
like,
that
and I'm a bit confused what one lake really is. It sounds like it's a lake house, but what really it is. So I think it was a
okay,
good
cool.
one to
Awesome.
resolve. Uh, yeah,
Awesome. So,
confusion.
Johnny, just send me a message on our learning room, or either in the Microsoft Fabric Cafe LinkedIn or somewhere. Just reach me out and send me your email address somewhere, and I will just share the voucher with you. Let's just back to my screen, and here we've got riddles. These riddles are designed by Armando. Thank you very much for that one. But here we're gonna wait for the answers. Let's see how it's gonna work and how many riddles are going to be resolved. The first riddle: what is the name of the bottom of the lake?
I wonder what's the time gap in between us here and
Yeah, yeah,
showing
and that is
our.
why I wait. I think there is a delay for LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken. But
Mhm.
let's wait for them. Ah, perfect.
Got a winner.
Sorry.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. One lake. Yeah, nice, nice, perfect. You were looking for the voucher, right? It is for you. Next riddle. It is made of wood and has a beautiful view. What a nice riddle. ADLS.
No, I think that was the previous question, and it's not ADLS. It's
Oh,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
Tyler, come in person one of my sessions. I always give them away in my personal sessions, in person sessions.
Yeah. People have to travel to California, maybe.
All
Yeah.
right, Merjan got it.
Yeah, Mirjam. Perfect. Thank you very much. And Mirjam is our third winner. Oh, sorry. My mic just. Cool.
Sorry, some
Awesome.
technical
Thank you.
difficulty. The microphone just
And
fell
the
off.
last one, it is used to fly and now to organize data. It is
Oh
very
wow!
tricky one, really. It is very
Oh
tricky
wow!
one. I'm just waiting for the person who answered this question. I'm sure you maybe listened or carefully to this one. Its name just brought up several times. It is not warehouse. It is not lake house.
That's a tough one. I don't know who wrote it, but it's a bad guy.
No. Oh, nice.
Very
Nice.
good. You got one there.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect. Perfect. Perfect, Mirjam. And yeah, it is delta table, right? And as in delta wings for flying. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We had other comments there as well. Thanks everyone for joining the session. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed the session. And in Microsoft Fabric Cafe, we will have the monthly updates from Microsoft Fabric Office, and it's there gonna be some preparation for DP600 exam. And like this session that we have Fabric Cafe, live sessions. Bring your coffee and enjoy fabric, and let's learn together. We will just walk through the fabric experiences with great speakers like Armando, and we will have other sessions with Armando in couple and in coming month, maybe in December or something. But we will have the workshops, boot camps, and tutorials. Just stay tuned. We will have a members club that is going to give for active members, and for those who just won the voucher, just uh, give me a knock, and we can just share the voucher with you. And when you pass the exam, just mention Armando, of course. Was the sponsor of this session. Thank you very
No,
much.
you're the sponsor.
Uh,
Yeah, I did not buy the voucher. You got it.
no, 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 not about that. No, the sponsor for providing the riddles and the questions, and
Oh,
actually,
there we go.
you,
Okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
it was all because of you. Thank you very much. And yeah, just follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and if you missed the session, you can just always watch the recorded one on YouTube channel. Join the learning rooms. There you can just find your experts and your peers. You can just chat with other experts and just ask your questions and share your knowledge with others. And thank you very much again for joining. If there is no more comments, what is the question here, Ganani? Is
He got
there any
he got
chance
the
to
answer.
get
He got the
on
answer
the?
right, but a bit late.
Yeah, you were a bit late, but maybe in the next session, just stay tuned, bear with us, and we will be there soon the next week. But yeah, the vouchers are 50% off on all fundamental and associates actually certification and for there. And yeah, thank you very much for joining. If there is no more question, we can wrap up the session. Oh, there's one more question that I missed here. Armando, it is for you. Sorry to move to the question. No worries. It is, always good to have the questions. I agree.
Mhm.
Don't hesitate to that. When to go for traditional Azure solutions versus Fabric, which is a nice question, I think.
When to go? Well, if I was a Microsoft employee, especially in marketing, I would say now. But as a consultant and a Microsoft partner, my question to you is the DBA. My answer to you to your question is the DBA answer. It depends. And it depends because we're all serious in this now. It depends because the solution, the services and solutions you have in traditional Azure are more mature. You do have some features in there that you do not have in Fabric. And depending on what you want to do, you either have to mix that with Fabric or just stay where you are. Microsoft message today is if you are starting a new data engineer project in Microsoft platform, you should look into Fabric, right? It should be your first option. But make sure you look into the particular features you want to leverage in your solution, and if they are already available in Fabric. Like I said, there are some features that they do exist and outside in traditional Azure, and they're not really supported in Fabric yet. On the other hand, there are some features in Fabric, they're either ready or in public preview, that don't exist in Azure. And one of them that I really like a lot is the mirroring of data sources. In traditional Azure, in Synapse, for instance, you have Cosmos DB mirroring inside Synapse. But in Fabric, we have Azure SQL DB mirroring when the database is in Azure. That is just great. It's free and makes the life of ingesting data from SQL so much easier. So the answer to your question, really, it depends. And you have to look into your particular use case and look at the features you need and see if they are mature enough inside Fabric, which they should be. If not, you should resort back to traditional Azure until they show up in Fabric.
Okay, cool. And yeah, we are actually running out of time, but there is one more question. I think it can be the last question. Peter, just Peter, if I'm correct, actually pronouncing your name correctly, are there any performance optimization guidelines, such as the mentioned one mentioned based on the data set size versus in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I cannot answer that question in 1 minute or less. But the answer is there are, right? There are guidelines, and it's more about the data engine you come to choose than anything else, right? Like if you're doing a Spark engine, your main optimization guideline for querying data is partitioning. You have to leverage partition pruning. If you're doing very large data sets, which is the case here, right? If you are doing the warehouse, you don't have specific techniques you can apply today, right? You're going to leverage the file elimination feature inside the warehouse. But reducing granularity, especially because here in this session, we're talking about data engineering only. There is a point in time where you're going to get that data and serve to Power BI, right? Inside Fabric, if you're doing Fabric, and you are. So you're going to serve to Power BI. And when you get there, you need to reduce granularity in order to have better performance in the Power BI dashboards. So there are a lot of techniques that are in best practice you can apply over there. It depends on the use case and depends on the data engine that's serving the data.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. The questions are coming up. I'm not sure. Armando, do you have time still to answer this?
Yeah. I have all time. I still have coffee in my mug. I'm good.
Awesome. Good for you. So the next question from Peter. Databricks has demoed things like Salesforce mirroring. Are there similar options that
I'm sorry.
connect Fabric to?
Have what? Databricks has. Can you read the question again, please? I missed that.
It says Databricks has demoed things like Salesforce mirroring. Are there similar options that connect Fabric to LOB apps?
Yes, there are. So the word mirroring, like any other word in the technical arena, they are overloaded, right? It depends on the context for the meaning. If you look into Fabric, you're not going to see Salesforce mirroring as it is today. But you do have the Salesforce connector to collect data from Salesforce. So can you ingest data from Salesforce into Fabric? Yes. Does it behave exactly like Databricks? More likely not, but you still can bring data from Salesforce.
Mhm. And the one question here, do Fabric engines support parallel processing like HPC?
Oh yeah, everything in Fabric was designed to support MPP, right? The old acronym supports MPP. So there are cases when you run your thing, if you don't write or configure it well, it will be single noded, single node, probably single threaded as well. Like if you create a notebook using Spark, Spark is multiple nodes, but if you write things in a particular way, you may render Spark from spreading the workload into multiple nodes, and everything will work in only one node. So it depends on how you write your things and write your logic, but everything in Fabric is uh, highly scalable, right? The warehouse and the Lakehouse, they are both highly scalable. When it gets to the semantic model, there is a scalability option in there, the scale out of the semantic model, but it's a different thing. So in there, it's a different conversation.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for joining. Today we had three winners, Johnny, uh, Guri Prasad, and also Mirjam. Congratulations to you, and just don't forget to ping me in Learning Room or somewhere. And you can always ask the questions in the socials that we have. I will try to get hold of Armando to answer those questions. And thank you very much. And let's wrap up the session. Armando, that was great to have you here today, and it was really a pleasure for us to have our first speaker, in Fabric Coffee program. Thank you very
What an
much.
honor.
And
What an honor.
yeah,
Thank you very much. Hey, next time we spoke about the lake house and the warehouse. Next time we can jump to the next data engine, which is the coastal data engine, and talk about KQL.
awesome. That would, yeah,
All right.
that would
Thank
be
you guys.
awesome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very time. Thank you very much. And guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And just grab your coffee if this morning. If it is late, you can go for a lighter, a drink. But you can go for it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one. Cheers. See you in the next session.